We're holding Sefer Mishlei Perek Chaf Aleph in the middle of Chaf Aleph, Pasuk Tet Zayin. Adam to'eh mederech haskel b'khal refaim yanuach. He translates here, a man who strays from the way of understanding will rest in the congregation of the shades. It's not a good translation here because refaim over here means in Gehenom, with those who have died. Refaim means with those who have already died, those who are gone, especially those who are in Gehenom. This is a very significant point. He's talking about somebody who is intelligent. He studied once upon a time, but to'eh miderech haskel, because of his ta'avot. There's only two ways to lead one's life. You can either go through your sechel or through the ta'avot. Sechel meaning over here judging one's ways, in other words, if they're right or wrong by what the Torah says. But that requires sechel. The ta'avot conflict with the sechel, and sometimes people who are smart, or smart meaning intelligent, they know right from wrong, they're knowledgeable, hem to'im miderech haskel, they will stray from the derech HaTorah. And the rabbis tell us, kol haporesh me'atorah yoresh gehenom. Whoever goes away from the Torah, in the end, he lands in Gehenom, because he will make all the mistakes, because he does not have the Torah to guide him. Similar idea over here. Shlomo Melech says, Adam to'eh miderech haskel, if he strays from the way of understanding, no longer uses his sechel, but just purely his ta'avot, he will get himself into trouble. And this happens to the best of people, knowledgeable people, intelligent people, and the reason why it happens is because they're to'im miderech haskel. Miderech refaim yanuach, in other words, that they will land in Gehenom, because they will make all the mistakes. And this is a good pasuk to introduce the perek, or the rest of the perek, because there will be several pasukim that talk about ta'avot and about the loss of control that people have when it comes to the various ta'avot. Not only ta'avot, not only the desires of their heart, but even something like anger and laziness, all of that included. Next pasuk, Ish machzor ohev simcha ohev yain vashemen lo yashir. A man he who loves joy should be a poor man. He who loves wine and oil should not become rich. If you just read the pasuk literally, it's hard to understand. What does that have to do with anything? To love joy is beautiful, to love wine and oil. But here he's talking about one who overdoes the ta'avot and who buys himself all the luxuries and all the things that satisfy his ta'avot. As a result of that, he goes to great expense. And because he goes to great expense to satisfy his cravings, what happens? Machzor. He will have a lack of money. He will become poor. In other words, a lot of these ta'avot become habits that are difficult to get rid of. And even smoking. Smoking is not so expensive unless you smoke many packs a day. But there can be some habits or some ta'avot that can become very expensive. And one who goes after these things and he loves these things, it ends up as a mahsor for him. He ends up spending or wasting a lot of money. Commentators explain that any habit that a person gets used to for a long time brings about, I'm talking about habits that have to do with ta'avot, brings about a certain laziness to the individual, a lack of motivation perhaps, and as a result of that he has no interest in working, and guess what happens? He becomes poor. Now if he's lucky and he lives in one of the Scandinavian countries, maybe they'll take care of him, the socialist countries, the welfare system. But otherwise this causes poverty, all as a result of the pursuit of ta'avot, of wanting to satisfy all his cravings. So initially one may think there's nothing wrong with it, but when something is overdone and it becomes a habit, a hergel, it leads to mahsor, it leads to a lot of bizbuz, a lot of waste, and subsequently litroshesh, in other words, that he becomes poor. Next pasuk, kofer latzadik rasha v'tachat yesharim boged. This is an interesting pasuk. It has nothing to do apparently with ta'avot, and I'm not sure why he sticks it in over here, but this is what it means. A wicked man shall be ransomed for a righteous man, and a treacherous one instead of the upright. Sometimes midat hadin, according to the Kabbalah, midat hadin, as you know, is the attribute of justice. When it's very powerful and it demands justice, even the tzaddikim get caught in this net of midat hadin. But sometimes HaKadosh Baruch Hu cancels the midat adin through midat rachamim, and he saves the life of the tzaddik, of an individual who otherwise would have been caught as a result of the midat adin. So Shlomo Melech here says, what do you think happens now? You think it's just the tzaddik is saved and that's it? No. Whenever a tzaddik is saved from midat adin, kofer la tzaddik rasha, midat adin is not satisfied now, it wants somebody instead of him. So when a tzaddik is saved, there is a ransom to be paid, and the rasha takes his place. An individual who doesn't have as many merits will take his place. And the commentaries give us, the rabbis talk about the example of Haman and Mordechai. Midat Adin was very, very strong back then in Shushan. The Jews were in trouble. And even Mordechai was in trouble. But instead of Mordechai, Haman was taken. I mean, that's good. I mean, the point here is that Midat Adin is not satisfied. It's a very, very powerful attribute. And just because the tzaddik is saved, it doesn't mean it has quieted down. There's still anger, there's still din, but a rasha will take his place. A rasha that would have otherwise lived for many, many years, perhaps, but as a result of lack of merits. At certain times, there are certain times that midat adin is very powerful, and it takes people. One of those times is called idna l'ritha. You will find that term in the Zohar. A time of ritha, of boiling anger. A time of boiling anger, Bashamayim, there's some moments like that Hashem is very upset, or midat adin is very, very, very strong. And then people get caught or punished even for small, minor things that would otherwise Hashem would overlook. Not that he overlooks it, that he would push it aside. He would forgive. He would give a chance. So one has to be careful, with all of this. That's why he mentions it over here, obviously, that it's not just something to ignore. I mean, it's good that a rasha takes the place of a tzaddik, but otherwise we see that midat adin could even take the good ones. Tov shevet be'eretz midbar me'eshet midyanim b'cha'as. Apparently Shlomo Melech has a lot of experience with women, because he mentions various pesukim, similar ideas, what it is to experience a bad relationship with certain individuals. And the one he's talking about over here, the one he has in mind over here, is not only a quarrelsome woman, that's an eshet midyanim, but one that gets angry frequently. He says, Tov shevet be'eretz midbar me'eshet midyanim v'cha'as. It is better to dwell in the desert land than to be with a quarrelsome and vexatious wife. A woman who always gets angry. What's the point over here? We know that it's not good to be alone. Habdidut hi lo tova, as we say in Hebrew. It is not good to be single. It's just not good. Rabbis always encourage one to be married. One whose wife passed away should remarry. One who got divorced for some reason should remarry. One should not stay single. Even if he is older, even if he already has children, he should settle down and have a partner and be with someone. It's healthy. It's the right thing. It protects one from sin. There's a lot of benefits. But sometimes the rabbis say, and that's what Shlomo Melech is telling us, that the alternative to being stuck with a quarrelsome wife is to be by yourself. That's what he says. It is better to dwell in the desert than to have to go through a situation like that. What's the hidush over here? I mean, it's obvious. Isn't it obvious? Isn't it obvious that nobody would want to experience that? Nobody would want to live in such a home, such a woman? He's not only describing how difficult it is, as we will see in other pesukim, Kimotzani marmi mavet et haisha. A woman can be more bitter than death. It can be something very, very difficult to deal with. So he's not only telling us about how bitter it is and how bad it is, he's telling us that it's actually better off. A person is entitled. He would be entitled. It would be understandable if he would not want to be in this kind of a situation. We can't expect somebody to suffer. And as I mentioned this in the past, the rabbis tell us, what's the cure for such a woman? To divorce her. Then why doesn't everybody divorce? Either because there are small children at home, or because her ketuvah is too expensive, and it's hard to get rid of her, right? So, depending on the circumstances, it may not be so easily gotten, the divorce. And we have to have pity on somebody like that. It's a very difficult situation to live under the same home with somebody who's very quarrelsome, always gets angry. It's not easy. And obviously one should pray as much as possible that he shouldn't fall into this trap. Perhaps, Shlomo Melech is also warning those people who think that they're smart and they're going to marry someone because she's beautiful, because she has money. They don't realize that no money in the world and no beauty will be able to cover up the other faults that she may have, especially if she's a very quarrelsome and angry woman. Who cares for the money? So, analyze or investigate what you're getting into, and decide really is it really worth it? He says it's not. This is the kind of midot, characteristics that the woman has. I have to be fair. This is also true if the men are like that, right? It's not easy. So why are the women being picked on? I'll leave it for another time. Next pasuk. Otzar nechmad v'shemen b'nvei chacham u'chsil adam yevale'eno. Precious treasure and oil are in the dwelling of a wise man, but man's foolishness will swallow it up. It's a very poetic pasuk, talking about the treasures, the pleasant treasures or the precious treasures of oil. What is he talking about? He's talking about savings account. That's all. He's talking about the importance of savings, of having a treasure, of trying to save some money. And you will find a savings b'nevei chacham, in the dwelling of a chacham. As opposed to who? As opposed to a kesil. Kesil adam yivale'eno. All his earnings, he will swallow it up. A man's foolishness will swallow it up. Spend it. Splurge. Waste it. This point is a very easy to understand point. I mean, we understand the importance of savings. Saving for a rainy day, they say in English. Saving for your retirement. Saving for later years. Saving to marry off your children. The reason he has to mention this is because some people's nature does not recognize this. They say, you got the money today, spend it today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Now, it's true that you don't have to worry about tomorrow. You could have bitachon b'Hashem, but you have to be reasonable too. You have to do what's reasonable. And what's reasonable is you don't spend all your money you have, because you don't know if you're going to have a job tomorrow. You don't know if you're going to be healthy tomorrow. Will you be able to work? Then what's going to happen? Who's going to pay for all the bills? And today there is a very interesting phenomenon. People are living longer, and once they get into their late 70s or 80s, they can't take care of themselves. They need a nursing home or a convalescent home, and they don't have enough in their savings to pay for that. And if they don't have kids who are willing to take care of them, they're stuck. What are they going to do? So you have to think about these things, and that's what he says. In the home of a chacham, you will find savings. You will not find waste. Next pasuk. Rodef tzedakah v'chesed yimtza chaim tzedakah v'chavod. He who pursues charity and kindness will find life, charity and honor. This is a famous pasuk, an example of midah kineged midah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays measure for measure. Whoever pursues tzedakah, whoever is kind to others, he will find in turn that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be kind to him, will give him long life. People will give him kavod. Everything is midah kineged midah. By helping the poor, he gives life to the poor. He gives kavod to the poor. He's charitable to the poor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will give him in his time of need. But why is it called rodef? Why is it called to pursue? You could say noten tzedakah. What kind of a language is rodef? Commentaries explain that a true bal tzedakah, a true charitable person, doesn't wait for opportunities of tzedakah to come to him, whether it's in the mail, in person, or sheliachim, asking him for money. A true rodef tzedakah is he looks for opportunities. He says, okay, now I have to give maaser. Right? I have to give maaser $1,000 or $100 or whatever it is. And you makes a check right away to some organization that he finds out that needs tzedakah, and he sends them the check, or he goes over to them personally, and he gives it, takes care of it. He doesn't wait until it comes to him. He looks for opportunities to give to them. That is a true bal tzedakah. When people come to you and you give tzedakah, of course, we are fulfilling the mitzvah. When they come to you, the Torah says, they come to you, open your hand. But here he calls it rodef tzedakah, which is in some ways a higher ma'ala. It shows that one really likes this mitzvah. He pursues it. He looks for any opportunity to help people. And Hashem, of course, pays him back in return. There's a famous story in the Gemara about Munbaz HaMelech, one of the kings in Israel during the Second Temple era, who was a very righteous man. I think he converted. And he was very, very different than all his family, than all his relatives. And there was a time of Batzoret. There was a time in that region when there was Batzoret. There was a drought, famine. There was not enough food. And he took all his treasures, the bizbezotam, his treasures and the treasures of avotam, of his parents, of his family, he spent it on feeding the poor. And the Gemara tells the story of how they all ganged up on him. The whole family came and asked him, "What are you doing? Your parents, everyone before you, saved money, put away money, to accumulated wealth, to have more and more. And you are spending it now?" So his answer was, "My forefathers, they saved downstairs and I'm saving upstairs. My forefathers saved in a place where the hand can reach, where something can happen to the money. And I'm saving money in a place where no hand can reach. My forefathers saved something that does not produce fruit, does not produce anything else. And I'm saving something that will produce fruit. My forefathers saved treasures of money, and I'm saving treasures of nefashot, of souls. Saving people's lives." You see his understanding what value money has, what to do with the money. That's rodef tzedakah v'chesed, yimtza chaim tzedakah v'kavod. He was smart, he did the right thing. He had the right attitude of what to do with the money. Next pasuk, Ir giburim ala chacham vayored oz miftecha. A wise man ascended to a city of mighty men and brought down the stronghold in which it trusts. Also a very poetic pasuk to describe the value of chokhmah versus anything else in the world, even strength. In this pasuk he's talking about the value of chokhmah, which he has done many, many times, to continuously remind young and old how it's much more important to be a chacham, to be knowledgeable than anything else, and to be rich, than to be strong. Because Ir Giborim ala Chacham, a smart man, was able to go into a city of strong people, Vayored Oz Miftecha, and bring down, as he calls it over here, the stronghold in which it trusts. In other words, the Chacham was able to defeat the Gibor, he who is strong. So what if he can pick up 500 pounds? What's the big deal? There's nothing to admire. What could he do with that strength? There's nothing that he can accomplish with that strength. Money too has no value. You have millions of dollars. Yes, 25,000 units. Have you heard? People have thousands of units, apartments. That's how they calculate how rich he is. How many units does he have? How many apartments is it? So what? What does he do with it? I know some people who have many properties and a lot of real estate, and they tell me, the lawyers tell me, they see them every other day in court, evicting somebody. That's the kind of life they have. All right. But one of those individuals, please give tzedakah. All right. But it's just a little strange. Chokhmah, if a person can acquire chokhmah, that's better than anything else. Unless, of course, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him barakah, he has a lot of money and he uses it for the right thing, that's good too. But if a person has a choice, that's what he emphasizes over here. Chokhmah is better than anything else. Next pasuk. Now we're coming into something very, very significant that is very relevant. Shomer pivu leshono, shomer mitzarot nafsho. Also a very popular pasuk. He who watches his mouth and his tongue guards his soul from troubles. What kind of troubles? A lot of troubles. Guarding his mouth and his tongue. If you read this pasuk literally, what do you think of? What are you guarding your mouth and tongue from? You may either think that you're guarding your mouth or tongue from talking lashon hara, or it could be, what about from overeating? And the answer is from both. Shomer pivu leshono, whoever guards his mouth and tongue, whoever watches what goes in and what goes out, shomer mitzarot nafsho, then he is definitely guarding his soul from troubles. What? Yeah, all of that. What are we talking about here? One of the pesukim that I think we saw is Mavet v'chaim biyad lashon. Life and death depends on the tongue, right? So a lot of harm can come out of the misuse of the tongue. You have to be very careful. I put together a quick list of just about anything that came to my mind of what kind of harm can a person do with his tongue. Now we're talking about what comes out of the tongue. Lashon hara was the first example that was mentioned. Everybody know here what Lashon hara is? I don't have to translate. Ka'as, anger. And I guess you can also get angry without saying a word. You know, your mouth turns red. Maybe. But there's a big difference. No words are being said in anger. Anger, sheker, right? Revealing other people's secrets, which is like olech rachil, rachilut. Machloket, as a result of over-talking. Ga'ava, arrogance. Kavod, the pursuit of honor, just because of saying something. Kalut rosh. Kalut rosh, I guess in English we would translate it lightness or levity of the head. In other words, when a person is very lax in his conduct. Nivul peh, bad mouthing, bad language. And bitul Torah, talking about politics. What's wrong with politics? Nothing, but it could be a big bitul Torah. During the time that you were spending talking about something that you have no control over. You know, people just talk nonsense all the time. He should do this. What is he thinking? What is he trying to do with it? What's the difference? What do you care? Go learn some Chumash. Go read some Tehillim instead. That would be more useful than just talking nonsense that has no value whatsoever. All of that from the Lashon. And the rabbis tell us that many great individuals ended up in Gehenom because of their Lashon, because of misusing their tongue. Why did they end up in Gehenom? Because some harm that is done with the tongue sometimes is very difficult to repair. You spoke about someone, you spoke about people, go find them, go ask them forgiveness, go repair their reputation, go take back the damage that was done. It's very difficult. So that's why one has to be extra careful with what he says. We're also talking about the other part of what goes into the mouth. Excess food is obviously also could be a source of trouble in two ways. Excess food could be a source of trouble because what you eat may hurt you. You may get ulcers, you may get problems, right? And you can gain weight too, besides that. That's one kind of result or consequence of excess food. Another problem is that the rabbis tell us that a person who overeats and gets himself into the habit of excess food and drink, that also leads one to sin. Food and drink and levity of the mind, all of these things can also lead one to sin. That is why the commentaries say on this pasuk that it's a tremendous avodat Hashem. It's a tremendous, important avodah. Risun hapeh v'lashon. To be able to control one's mouth and tongue, it's a tremendous avodah. You know, in the avodah of Hashem, there's many things, there are many details, many aspects on how to serve Hashem, with the proper kavanah, with the proper machshavot, in the prayer, in the mitzvot we do, right? That we do it l'shem shamayim, that we have no, we don't do it for ourselves. All of that is avodat Hashem. But one of the greatest avodot, one of the greatest ways of serving Hashem is with the mouth. How? By controlling what goes in and what goes out. That's an important and a very important avodah. I think it's mentioned in the Kabbalah. All of you are aware how important a fast is. Do you know that 3 fasts in a row of 24 hours each, according to the Kabbalah, is equivalent to 40 days? Let's say you want to fast for 40 days. 40 days is a very, very powerful kapara for many sins. 40 days straight, eating at night, obviously. We're not Moshe Rabbeinu, right? So 40 days straight, eating at night, is a powerful... Don't do it because it's difficult, and there are other things that one can do instead. But the Kabbalah writes that if you want to have the same effect, you can do it in 3 days, but the 3 days of 24 hours each. That's also very difficult. That's what Esther asked Am Yisrael to do back then. Whoever does 3 days of 24 hours each, it's equivalent to 40 days. Now, why did I tell you this? Because there's something else that is almost as equivalent as a fast. Not as 3 days, but like a fast. What's your favorite dish? Couscous. Yeah. Yeah. But is it with raisins or without raisins? With or without raisins? Without, yeah. Yeah, anyway. Imagine somebody serving you your most favorite dish. Your most favorite dish. Right? And you eat a little bit, and you would like to finish the whole plate. Sometimes you would even want to lick your fingers. But you hold yourself back and you don't finish. Isn't that difficult? And you're hungry. It's very difficult. You're hungry, you're being served your favorite dish, you eat a little bit, and then you say, no, ad kan, I'm not eating anymore. It's a tremendous self-control. That self-control is equivalent to a fast. To if one fast. It's similar. I don't know if it's equivalent, but it's similar. I don't know if it's exactly the same. It's very powerful, because as long as, of course, you had in mind that this is for self-control. It's not because, it's missing some salt and pepper, or I'm in a hurry to the airport to catch a flight. Right? As long as you had in mind that you're holding yourself back for the real reason.
That's why they say always leave the table, always with a little hunger.
Yeah, that's another idea. Right, leave yourself, yeah. So the right thing to do is to leave a little bit in your plate to get used to it. Not to throw it out in the garbage, that's baklashchit. Put it in the refrigerator, eat it a couple hours later, eat it tomorrow. Just ways of teaching oneself self-control. And this is a very powerful way of self-control when it has to do with food. You know what people do for food? They go crazy. America, is the capital of food. Here there is takeout. They bring it to your home. Everything is about food in this country. So that's why he talks about here, shomer people l'shano, that which goes in plus that which comes out. It's a tremendous avodah. Now, the rabbis also tell us there's another way a person can hold his mouth shut, and that is a time of anger and machloket. Kol hachosem piv, whoever shuts his mouth when he could really answer, zocheh le'or ganuz, he will have the zechut to see the great light that is reserved for tzaddikim. Just because he held back his mouth, he could have yelled back, he could have answered back, but he held himself back. It's hard. And the commentaries also say that one of the greatest ways to be mechaper on one's sins, there's a whole list of things that one can do if he did many sins. There's a whole list, and I can give it to you one of these days if you want. All sorts of things that a person can do that will help him with his complete kapara. One of them is to keep quiet and to control one's tongue. Whoever regularly manages well, in other words, in handling his tongue and keeping quiet and not just answering back and not saying lashon hara, all of that is called controlling one's tongue. It helps him tremendously with kapara of his avonot. So that's an additional benefit. Another area that one has to be very careful with the mouth is lo liftoach pe satan. Does everybody know what that means? Not to open your mouth to the devil. Rabbi Tarfon had several boys and one daughter, I think. He used to sometimes try to convince someone or people about something, and he used to swear on the life of his boys, and all his boys died. He was only left with one girl. Lo liftoach pe satan. You have to be careful not to open your mouth to say something which can be construed, by the Satan as something that you're wishing for yourself. Says, he might say amen. So one has to be very careful not to open up his mouth to the Satan, even on something which is theoretical. Next pasuk, Zed Yahir Letz Shemo Ose Bevrat Zadon. Zed, he translates over here, a malevolent, a bad person. That's easier to understand. A wicked, a bad person, that's called a Zed, or malevolent. A haughty man, an arrogant man. A scorner is his name. So here we have a scorner who has two characteristics. He's being called a scorner, a letz, and he's a Zed and a Yahir. Zed meaning that he is malevolent, bad, wicked, and he's also arrogant. His name is a scorner. He acts with malevolent anger. Also a little bit difficult to understand. But this is basically what he says. A Zed, a malevolent person, doesn't like anybody. He wishes people bad. He's actually happy when people make mistakes, people lose money. That's a Zed. I just tried to describe you the characteristic of a malevolent person who's not interested in the good of people, just in the bad, that they should fail. He's happy when they don't do well and so forth. This man is Yahir, he's arrogant, and that is why he's called a Letz. Why is he called a Letz? Because he makes fun of people. He mocks people. A Zed Yahir mocks people. Why? Because he's arrogant. And what does an arrogant person want to see? He wants to see that the other person is less than him. So this pasuk, perhaps, there's a lot of psychology here in trying to understand what's going on in this person's mind. Why is he making fun of these people? Why is he a Letz? Because he's Yahir. He has arrogance, and part of arrogance is to put other people down, to make yourself feel better. Oseh be'evrat zadon, and when he gets angry, he does things out of anger too. In other words, he not only mocks, he not only makes fun of people, but even in his actions, he does terrible things, and he does so in anger. Rabbis tell us, Kol hamityaher, I think they say it on this pasuk, whoever is arrogant will eventually go to Gehenom too. Nofel b'Gehenom. Ta'avat atzel temiteno ki mi'anu yadav la'asot. That's the next pasuk. Let's see how he translates it here. The desire of a lazy man will bring about his death, for his hands refuse to labor. Again, he talks about laziness. Many times he talks about laziness. And here he says that the desires of the atzel, temiteno, will kill him. Why? Because atzlut, laziness, gets a person used to wanting to rest a lot. And as a result of resting a lot, the body is no longer in physical shape. And as a result of not being in good physical shape, he does not go out to work. And it becomes very, very difficult for him to control his feet, to control his hands. And that's why he says here, it will kill him. Temiteno. This kind of a lifestyle of doing nothing, of bumming around, in the end kills a person. Ki mi'anu yadav la'asot, because he will not want to do anything in the end. Now, this is exact opposite of another important midah, the midah of zerizut, which is diligence. One who is diligent, a tzaddik who is diligent, anything that he does is not heavy for him, is not difficult for him. A person who is lazy, just about anything that you offer to give him, offer that he should do, it's heavy, it's difficult, it's a burden. Whereas one who is a zariz, one who is diligent, the job that you offer him, that you ask him to do, is not difficult at all. And zerizut is an important part of a tzaddik's life, because a tzaddik is an oved Hashem. He serves Hashem. And avodat Hashem doreshet zerizut. It demands zerizut. It demands for one to be diligent. Therefore, you cannot afford to be lazy. Next pasuk. Kol hayom itava ta'ava v'tzadik yiten v'lo yachsoch. All day he covets greedily, but the righteous man gives and does not spare. Kol hayom itava ta'ava. All day long he covets. What does that mean? The rabbis tell us the more remote, the farther a ta'ava is, the harder it is for a person to get, the more he wants it. If it would be close to him, if he would have it, he wouldn't covet it as much. And the rabbis use different words to explain this point. Eno domeh mi sheyesh lo pat besalo le mi she'en lo pat besalo. It's not the same whoever has bread in his basket to whoever has no bread in his basket. And this is a very, very, very important point. Somebody who's married, okay, will not come to sin as easily than somebody who's single. Why? First, unless of course he loves to do things that are wrong, because he has pat besalo, he has bread in his basket. He has a wife. Why should he go elsewhere? Why should he go pursue other ta'avot? Unless of course he's a long time by himself, or unless he's tempted, seduced, or he's full of ta'avot, in his head. But otherwise, he has pat besalo. Person who does not have pat besalo, it's much more difficult for him. It's very difficult for a lot of people who are in business and they're single, and they leave the Jewish community and they go travel to the Far East, to Hong Kong. People do this all the time, and they spend there several days, perhaps a week, and there's a lot of goyot there. So what if they're Chinese? So what if they're short? Still, it's a problem of arayot. And if a person is not careful, he does not have shiurim of Torah, he's not attached to a community, he does not, surround himself with mitzvot, he can easily fall. That's what he means over here. Kol hayom itava ta'ava. All day long he covets, because the further it is, the more interesting it is, the more he will desire it. But v'tzadik yiten v'lo yachsoch. A tzaddik, he says over here, righteous man gives and does not spare. What does that have to do with anything? A tzaddik's character is not to benefit from others. He doesn't want anything from others. A tzaddik therefore has an easier time giving instead of taking. He therefore doesn't have the same desires. He doesn't look to satisfy himself as much as this other individual. Right? Tzaddik would rather give than take from others. Therefore, by having the midah of a tzaddik, he doesn't have the problem of the ta'avot. A person who has ta'avot, he's selfish. He looks for ways on how to satisfy himself. And therefore, kol hayom, if he thinks about it, kol hayom, he ta'ava. He wants it more and more. In some ways, it's connected to the previous pesukim. Whereas a tzaddik, what do we say about the tzaddik before? The tzaddik, yiten v'lo yachsoch, he prefers to give because he doesn't want to benefit from people. As the pasuk says, yegia kapecha ki tochal ashrecha v'tov lecha. It's better for one to earn his money on his own, with his own bare hands, than having to go seek help from people. Tzaddik would therefore, even though the tzaddik himself could enjoy all the pleasures of the world, just like this other individual, instead he'd rather give that money, that extra money that he has, to the poor, to those who need it more. He uses his money differently. All right, the next pasuk, Zevach reshaim toeva af ki bezima yevi'eno. The sacrifice of the wicked is an abomination. How much more if he brings it with plans of wickedness? The simple translation is as follows: a rasha who does terrible things sometimes may want to give a donation. He wants to bring a zevach, a sacrifice. That donation, that sacrifice is an abomination. Hashem says, I don't need your money. And there used to be people in the olden days that used to come to rabbis, the big rabbis, for pidyon. Pidyon is to redeem, for a blessing. They used to give money. And the rabbis who had Ruach HaKodesh, they knew that this money was not kosher money. It was gambling money, or money from other sources that were not kosher. And of course, some of them did not accept the money because of that. One rabbi used to accept the money. And they asked him, how do you accept this money? It's from gambling or from where it's not kosher money. He says, don't worry. I don't use this money to buy food for the yeshiva boys. I give it for the horses. With this money, I used to feed the horses. Understand? So otherwise, you have to be careful. I mentioned this in the past. It's brought down somewhere that one rabbi asked, why is it that some people's kids stray from the Torah way and they end up eating non-kosher food, I think it was. No, that wasn't what. They stray from the ways of the Torah, or something happened to them, that they went away from the real derech. And the rabbi said either because they were fed nevelotu trefot, they were fed non-kosher food, or the parents fed them kosher food but with money that was not kosher. So as a result of that money going into their kids' system, it affects their mind, it affects their neshama. So zevach reshaim toeva, the korban, the sacrifice, the donation of rasha is not acceptable. It's an abomination. Avki bezima yevi'eno, one interpretation of avki bezima yevi'eno is even the more so if he uses that sacrifice for bad things, for the wrong things. Just like Balak and Bilam, they also brought sacrifices, the commentaries say, but they were for the wrong things. They were to curse Am Yisrael. That's one interpretation. The second interpretation, Zevach Reshaim Toeva Avki Bizima Yivi'enno, as it is, it's an abomination if the Rasha brings a donation. You think that's going to cover up your deeds? No way. Hashem doesn't accept it. The more so if that money is stolen money, is from a bad source. Of course it's an abomination. There's a concept called mitzvah ba'a be'avera, a mitzvah that has come through the performance of a sin. An example is somebody builds a sukkah, and how does he build a sukkah? He stole the plywood. He's stealing the plywood to make a sukkah. mitzvah haba'a be'avirah. Right? And the same thing is for those people who come to shul on Shabbat driving a car. Hashem says, you know what, don't do me a favor, stay at home and pray in your living room instead of driving that car and being mechalel Shabbat to come to the Bet HaKnesset. That's called zevach resha'im to'eva. Next pasuk, Ed kezavim yoved ve'ish shomea lanetzach yedaber. A false witness will perish, but an obedient man may speak forever. The simple understanding over here of Ed kezavim yoved is that a false witness, one who talks, falsely, gives false testimony, in the end, something will happen to him. If Bet Din down here does not punish him, Yoved, Bet Din Shel Mala Bashamayim will take care of him. A false witness is a very dangerous individual. He can cause a lot of harm, because the Torah very much puts a lot of faith and trust. Al Pishnai Medim Yakum Davar. Two witnesses can make a big difference. A lot in Judaism depends on testimony. Somebody who tells a woman, you know what, I was with your husband, and we were both in the front, and your husband got killed. I remember seeing him dead. They never found the husband. Can she get married? We're taking here a big risk. She could be an eshet ish. She could be a married woman. If her husband comes back, like many times they have come back, all of a sudden, oh, I thought you were dead. And meanwhile, she got married to somebody else. She's an eshet ish. She's a married woman, and her kids are mamzerim now. This is one of the most complex questions in halakha. The question of agunot, twin towers. There were people on the 110th story. We had to know for sure if they were there and if they got out. Or otherwise, their women are stuck. They can't get married. Because I don't know. Maybe he did manage to go down and he ran away. He's somewhere. All the soldiers who were in the Dakar, in the submarine, the Israeli submarine that they never found for many years, their wives couldn't get married because that's called Maim Shein Laim Sof. Maim Shein Laim Sof, the halakha says, a water that you don't see the end of it. Maybe he got up, he floated on a piece of wood, and he surfaced in some island, and he just started a new life in Europe. How do you know? Some husbands just don't come back home. There's a lot of stories of husbands who ran away, don't come home, got kidnapped, and a woman is stuck. So testimony in Judaism is very important. Do we rely on this testimony or not? Obviously we have to investigate this. But of course, there are some situations where we do rely. So Ed Kezavim, if he's a false witness, it can lead to a lot of trouble. Yoved, in the end he will die, something will happen to him, if not in Betin Shel Matan, then in Betin Shel Mala, Mitabi Dei Shamayim or something. V'ish Shomea Lanetzach Yedaber. But an obedient man may speak forever. What's an obedient man? Obedient man. Man who's obedient. He listens. What is he listening to? So the commentaries tell us one pirush, one interpretation means that he listens to what the Torah says. Lo ta'aneh bere'acha et shaker. Do not offer false witnesses on your friend. That's one interpretation. Another interpretation is that this pasuk is talking about people who give over a story or a rumor and they exaggerate and they add more details to the story and it ends up being completely false. Whereas ish shomea, a person who hears, is talking about an individual who hears the entire story carefully, analyzes, doesn't add more than what he should. Lanetzach yedaber, of course, he will always be accorded kavod, people will listen, people will accept him, people will always trust him. As the saying goes in various languages, but I'm almost sure they copied it from us, from the Gemara. The punishment of a liar is that they don't believe him even when he speaks the truth. There's also something like this in Italian. They take it probably from the Gemara. That is one of the ways that the liar suffers, that from now on they will not even believe him even when he speaks the truth. But ish shomea lanetzach yedaber, a person who is careful to hear the story, to hear the details accurately, then obviously people will want to listen to him at all times. Next pasuk, He'ez ish rasha befanav yashar hu yavin darko. A wicked man shows his brazenness in his anger, but an upright man, he will understand his way. Also several interpretations here. A wicked man shows his brazenness. A wicked man, you can see his chutzpah when he gets angry. Why does he get angry? Some of them get angry, the commentaries explain, to hide their wickedness. You don't trust me? That kind of an attitude. And they do it with such anger, trying to cover up. There's a lot of con artists, who also put up a show like that. And you can see, if you pay attention, you can see the wickedness from their anger. So that's what he says over here. V'yashar hu yavin darko. One who is a yashar, an upright man, he will understand his way. One pirush means he will understand the way of the rasha. He will see through the anger, and he will understand this guy is a wicked man, he's a liar. That's one interpretation. The other interpretation is that a righteous man, a yashar, does not lose his cool. I guess you say that in English? Yeah? Even at times of anger, he's still upright, he's still righteous, he doesn't get confused, he says the right things. Whereas a rasha loses himself, he's not composed, and you see that chutzpah, that brazenness in his anger. Another, I think, an additional interpretation here is that a rasha continuously makes the same mistakes, repeats his mistakes. V'yashar hu yavin darko is a person who's righteous, who made a mistake, realizes his mistakes and makes sure that he doesn't repeat it another time. He tries to correct it. Yavin darko means he understands his ways, he understands his faults or his mistakes, and he tries to correct them. The last two pesukim of the parak are very significant pesukim in having the proper hashkafa, the proper understanding, proper outlook of how Hashem does things in the world. Pasuk Lamed says, En chokhmah ve'en tebuna ve'en etzah leneged Adonai, also a pasuk that you may have heard of. There's neither wisdom nor understanding nor counsel against Hashem. You can't outwin him. You can't outsmart him. That's a simple understanding of these words. If there is an gzerah, if Hashem wills something, if he wants something to happen, no chokhmah, no tebuna, no etzah. As the pasuk says in Tehillim, Im Hashem lo yivneh bayit, shav amlu bonav bo. If Hashem does not help in constructing a home, in vain is all the work that the builders are putting in. What good is it? If Hashem does not agree with something, if Hashem does not help out, if Hashem does not give his blessing to something, then it will be in vain. It will be worthless. So that's the idea over here, en chokhmah. If Hashem has made a decision, it makes no difference what all the prime ministers are going to say. Right? Rabot machshavo v'levish, batzat Hashem hi takum. That's another pasuk that says basically the same thing. Whatever Hashem wants, that's going to happen. People ask me, Rabbi, what's going to happen in Israel? What's going to be? Whatever Hashem wants it to be, that's what's going to be. I don't have to worry about it. Whatever He wants to be, that's what's going to be. You think that they're going to decide the destiny of the Jewish people, of the land of Israel? They think they're deciding. They think they're playing around. They may be making mistakes too. But in the end, it's Hashem's plan that's going to come. A lot of people, a lot of kings, a lot of prime ministers try to interfere with the plan of Hashem, right? But Baruch Hashem, we're still around the Jewish people, right? The nation of Israel is coming back. Everybody thought we would disappear because Atzat Hashem Hitakum. That's Hashem's plan. He promised, all the prophets promised that we're going to come back to Eretz Israel. We're going to rebuild the land. So, Enet Chokhmah ve'en Tevunah ve'en Etzah leneged Hashem. Rabbis also say about this pasuk, She'en cholkim kavod larav b'makom sheyesh chilul Hashem, that if there's chas v'shalom a chilul Hashem, the possibility of a chilul Hashem, then you don't even give kavod to the rabbi. In other words, if there's going to be some chilul Hashem, you don't consider anything else. As the rabbis also mentioned, if somebody realizes in the middle of the street that his beged is kilayim shatnez, even though he's in public, he should take it off. Even though he's an important person, he should not pay attention to anything else. En cholkim kavod larav, you don't consider kavod, respect of the rabbi, of an important person, b'makom sheyesh chilul Hashem. What comes first? The kavod of Hashem comes first. You don't consider anything else. So that also applies to this pasuk of en chokhmah ve'en tevunah ve'en etzah leneged Hashem. Nothing compares. Yes?
Another example. One more example.
Of Chilul Hashem, any situation, I gave you the example that is mentioned, but any situation where Chilul Hashem could arise, you don't consider the positions and kavod of some individual, some human being, just because he's a rabbi, a very important person. He will be insulted. You don't consider that. There are various examples I don't want to mention names, but I heard of a story in New York where somebody spoke in a very chatzuf way to a very important rabbi. And this man was just a balabait, and he spoke in a very not respectful way. And another rabbi got up and gave him a slap. It took some guts to do that, and of course I don't think that person did anything, because I think he understood right away that he was wrong. I think so. But that was the right thing to do, is to put him in his place. But in order to do that, you had to understand this idea too. That if there's a Chilul Hashem or a lack of kavod of the Torah, you have to say something. You have to do something about it. Otherwise, it's like you agree with it. In the last pasuk of the perek, Sus muchan leyom milchama veladonai teshuah. A steed, I guess that's a horse, but a sus means a horse. A horse is prepared for a day of battle, but the victory is in Hashem. Very important pasuk. A horse is prepared to do battle, but the victory is in the hands of Hashem. What does that mean? Take out the tanks, prepare the missiles, take out the rifles and all the bullets, because you got to go al pi derech hateva. You got to do everything according to nature. But you know what? All of that makes no difference, because Hashem will decide who wins the war. And we see that in this week's parasha. Hashem yilachem lachem, vaten tacharishun. Hashem will conduct the war. You think you do war? Who led the war in the 6 days? 6-day war. You think they could win in 6 days all those armies just like that? It's an incredible miracle. You know why? Because sus muchan leyom milchama velashem ateshua. Very simple. Hashem yilachem lachem. All these pesukim remind us that Hashem is the one that conducts war. There is even a humorous interpretation of this pasuk. B'derech tzachot. It says like this: Sus muchan leyom milchama velashem teshua. If Hashem wants you to have a Yeshua, even one sus will be enough. That's what it means. But the bottom line of this pasuk is as follows: that when it comes to areas of refuah, medication, going to a doctor, when it comes to the area of parnasa, livelihood, when it comes to war, all of these three areas requires human intervention. It requires some effort. It requires what's called hishtadlut. Go ahead and do whatever you need to do. Al tismoch al hanes. You can't rely on miracles. But just remember that the results, the success or the failure of one's efforts will depend on what Hashem has decided. Why? Because Vel Hashem ateshua. The ultimate Yeshua, the ultimate victory, comes from Hashem. Very important lesson to remember, and I don't remember if I mentioned it last week. If not, I'll mention it again. I mean, I'm very happy that the Patriot missiles did not work during the Scud missile attack on Israel. Patriot missiles are very good missiles. You know why they didn't work? Because the Israelis would have said, "Thank you, Uncle Sam, for those missiles, for bringing down all those Iraqi Scud missiles." Hashem says, "No, I want you to thank me. So I'm going to make all those missiles fall, and 10,000 apartments are going to be destroyed, and nobody will be killed directly from a missile." Isn't that a beautiful miracle? Even in our times, had the Patriot missiles done it, what would we have said? Thank you, Bush, the father Bush, right? For the Patriot missiles. Hashem ateshua. Hashem is the one that helps us, not Uncle Sam. But we forget. A lot of Jews, unfortunately, rely and depend on American money, on Americans' help, and on Europe's help, and that's why they have a twisted mind on how to run the country. Unfortunately, they don't have enough emunah and bitachon in realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the boss and He runs the show. That is a very important point here in this pasuk. That the horses, fine, you have to have it. If we would be on the level of all tzaddikim, we wouldn't even need horses. We would sit at home and there wouldn't be war. There wouldn't be war. Ki b'rtzot Hashem darchei ish gam oivav yashlim ito. If Hashem approves of one's ways, even his enemies will make peace with him. And the fact that we've had many, many miracles shows how much HaKadosh Baruch Hu loves us, how much He takes care of us, and it's up to us to remember that and to recognize it and to give thanks to Him.